Hi, this is an unscripted tutorial on validation basics in Rails 4. So right here I have a new application, and what I'm going to do first is generate a model to play with validations on. Going to use my favorite example, Rails G model duck name string phone string. Break db migrate. Alright. Rails C. Jump into the console here. Duck. We have duck with a name and a phone, along with the default attributes. And right now we can create anything in here. Duck create. We can create something with just completely 100% blank. Duck count. But that doesn't really help us much. If we want to do, we can't search for that duck. Well, we could search for that duck, but it really doesn't help us too much. So let's jump into your favorite editor. I'm going to use Vim here. And we're going to pull open our model for the duck under app models duck. And so there are two different ways to use the generic or the provided validations in Rails, and I'm going to explain both of those plus a custom one. But before we talk about that, I suppose we should talk about what validations are. Validations are simply a means of requiring something before an object is saved, or to see if it's valid. So for our duck, we're probably going to want to make sure that our duck has a name and has a telephone number, and we can also specify some items on each of those things. So say, for instance, say we want to say validate. So there are a couple different methods here. Validate. So validate is one that we're going to loop back around to. Validate is the one that I use for the most often, and so we're gonna go with this guy first. So validates a name presence true. Now the nice thing here, so first off we can add that. Then if we go back here and we do d equals duck dot new, we have a new duck without any attributes. d.valid will ask it whether it's valid. And this says valid, so that tells me we probably need to reload our duck class. d.valid, and now it says false. So now we know it's false. If we try and save it, d.save, it's going to say, nope, sorry, because it's false, or return false, as save always does. d.errors, we can see errors name can't be blank. We can actually call that like that. Name can't be blank. So there we go. That's as simple as it gets. We can also add other things on here though. We could do format, and then we can pass some options to format with, and we can pass it a regular expression, A through B, or A through Z, and A through Z. We just want all alphanumeric characters in here. And let's save that. Make sure we get this right. And so now reload. Duck.new name. And we're going to say our new duck's name is D9. D.valid false. D.errors. And it says name is invalid, which is the default message there. We could customize that. We could say message must only contain letters. Not sure if we're supposed to have a period there or not to be consistent. Reload. Valid, false, errors, must only contain letters. Okay, so one thing I should point out is that if we call errors there, it's going to have nothing. We cannot find out the errors until we've called valid or save, and now the errors show up. So we now have an alpha name, and it also has to be there. Then something else that we could do, let's do another validation here. And since this is kind of long, we can pop that down to another line there. And then we can do validates. Actually, I'll use the other format here. We can save phone numbers should generally, unless it's a special phone number and they do it with letters, but it should be numeric. So let's, or we're going to stipulate that for our application, so we can do this other validation. Validates locality of, and then we're going to pass in phone. So well, let's save this, and then I'll talk about the differences between these two. Reload. So let's just do d.blank, d.save, errors, and so name cannot be blank and must contain letters because there's nothing there, and then phone is not a number. So that did what it said it was going to do. It validates whether it was a number or not. And this can be either a literal number or a number in strings. There's a whole bunch of other things that we can pass to this. And this is how I knew I could pass message, although I would have been looking up validates format instead to find all of those options. But here's a whole bunch of other options. We can ask if it's even, if it's valid, so on and so forth. Uh, the benefit to doing this one here is that um, we can pass multiple items. We could say name in here, and that does not make sense at all. Reload. D dot valid. D dot errors. And name cannot be blank, only contain letters and is not a number. So that does not make sense at all. But we can add multiple items to this. So if we want to say, okay, we've got 20 number items, just list them all here. That would be helpful. But most often I find that it's most helpful to have to have multiple types of validations on one attribute. So those are the two different types, and one you can add multiple attributes or multiple requirements, and one you can add multiple attributes to. The other one that I want to specify is validate and we could say let's see, validate silly names, where silly names. It's sometimes good to not just say validate silly names, but tell something about it or call it validate silly names. And we're going to write a custom validator here. There's also a way to do this in a separate class, but that's a little bit more advanced. So here we have our silly names excluded, and then we can do something like if name and has silly in it, if name silly, then errors and I believe we need to do this API may have changed here. Errors add name and I'm flying from memory, and with the new version we'll see if I got this correct. So now if we head back over here, reload, and do talk.near name foo silly, and what yes, okay, so I'm going to look this up. I just made an error. This is a good resource for you. length, you can see it goes through a whole bunch of different attributes here. Error. There we go. Ah, they changed it. Yeah. Okay. Actually, they may have the old version still, but so if we just do errors name and use the append operator there, if we do that, then now we should be good. So sorry for the error there. Foo silly. D.valid, or let's add a phone D.valid false D.errors, and name must only contain letters and can't be silly. So there we go. Did we leave? Presence true. Okay, so there we are. That's one way to do it. We can also add. We could also add this to base, and we can do basically essentially anything in here. So if we reload and foo silly D.valid D.errors did I not? Did not save. Okay. Reload. No errors. Call valid. Now call errors. And now we can call something on base. And we can get some errors back. There we go. So that base would completely cover the whole object. That is how we make sure that objects are created correctly, saved correctly. It's a very, very useful tool. Enjoy.